Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Dylan Blaylock with Clackamas County Public Affairs, and this is the first meeting of the Clackamas County Recovery Center Good Neighbor Group, meeting number 1. Great to put a face with everyone's name here. I've talked to some of you before. It's great, and thanks for being on time. Okay, first, I'm going to explain who everybody is from the county. For this, I'm Dylan Blaylock again with Clackamas County Public Affairs. I will help sort of facilitate along with just a couple other people here. I want to introduce Cindy Becker from County Administration. She has been the point person on the Recovery Center project really since, I think it's inception, for well over a year, probably, maybe 2 years, I don't know, for a long time. And she's great. She used to head the Department of Health, Housing, and Human Services here at the county. Also on the screen, yes, is Kimberly DeSantis from County Administration. She has been very, very involved with the project as well. I work closely with her and with Cindy on this project. I handle the communications for it. Let me see who else is here from the county. And we have Kalina. Kalina is a consultant for the county on the zoning changes for the site specifically. And I didn't see Brianna. Is Brianna here? I don't think so. No, I don't. Okay, great. And let me see. I see there's one member of the public who I can't tell who they are. They're just a Zoom user, but thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Okay. Let me see. I hope everyone just to start has had a chance to review the web page. I know there were some people who hadn't when I talked to them. But if you have not, please, I'll drop the link in the chat here very quickly. And that's for the Recovery Center webpage. Just if you still haven't got a chance to review that, we have very thorough FAQ on the project. And please do take a look at it. It's very good as far as detailing how we got here, commissioners' decisions, and that sort of thing. What I wanted to start off with saying what we did to solicit this particular group. We did, I know a lot of you were, I think some of you were in attendance at the previous meeting that we had on site during the summer, either late June or July, I think. And many of you showed up. Thanks very much. After that time, once the board made the decision to go ahead and purchase the center, and we did, I sent out a letter, a snail mail letter to everyone that day within a 300-foot radius of the school property. We also did some targeted social media, and I did a little bit of canvassing, I believe, but I don't think we needed it because the response was so great. We also sent it to the email list for our recovery center. And it was good news and bad news. The good news was we got a lot of response. The bad news was we couldn't take everybody on who applied and submitted their name for consideration for the group. I think we got upwards of 30 individuals, but that's too big of a group to have. So what you see now on the screen is who we got. And that's great because we had a conversation, either I or Kimberly or Cindy had initial conversation and introductory chats with all of you. And again, we thank you very much for donating your time. Really appreciate it. Bad news was we had to turn some people down. Seemed like everybody was qualified, but we did want a good representation from businesses, residents, organizations, other people around, people in recovery, and that sort of thing. I do want to point out that there is the chat feature. Anybody is free to use the chat feature at any time for this panel, and you are welcome to use that. Please let me know if you need any other needs during the meeting or if I'm missing something that makes this easier for you if there's any questions. Again, there is a member of the public watching, which is great. We welcome that. All of our meetings will be publicly available and live streamed. I will record them and put them later on YouTube with a link from the Recovery Center webpage. And so I see Brianna, the other zoning consultant, has joined us. So that's that person. Hello, Brianna. Great. And let me see, if you are a member of the public, anyway, again, we have one person. I will call on you later if you have a question or comment, and I will instruct you how to do that at that time. So thanks very much. Okay, let me get through that real quick. Here's how today's going to work. First, we're going to go around the room just very quickly and explain who we are, whether you're a resident or a local business or here for an organization or a person who's experienced recovery or other, and why you were interested in the group. We're going to try to keep that very brief, just 30 seconds or so. And then I'm going to pass it to Cindy. Cindy's going to go over the purpose of the group overall. We're going to discuss questions, concerns about the group and center, and talk some about the Good Neighbor Agreement. And then Cindy's going to give an update on the activities to date regarding the Recovery Center and the campus, about the property and about the to-be provider, that sort of thing. And then we're going to hear a little bit specifically from both Gary and Sarah, who are our two group members who have been through recovery, about their personal experiences. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of time at the end for any final questions, talk about next steps, and then we'll leave room for any public comment. And again, my goal is to end by 1. I believe we can do that. So first off, I'm going to go around the room just real quick. I'm going to call on people according to just how I see them. We'll just try to keep briefly again what sort of relationship you have to the Recovery Center, business, resident, other, that sort of thing. Just try to keep it to 30 seconds, please. We will start with Martin and Cindy.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Martin. This is my wife, Cindy. We're both a resident and a business owner. Within 2 blocks of the school, we actually live right across the street from the school, and the business is just on 82nd Drive in Tolbert. So we're here to just try to help and make sure everything goes smoothly with the transition. That's what we're hoping for.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you very much for being here, both of you. Next up, Gary, just a quick little bit about yourself, although we will have time for you later to go into, your story to give a better background. Go ahead.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gary Cobb. I am the principal at G Cobb Consulting. And prior to that, I spent about almost 24 years in nonprofit healthcare and recovery work, from at national level to various local and county and city areas. And I'll explain more about that as we go on. Grateful to be here.
Very good. Thank you, Gary. Let me see. The next member of the Good Neighbor Group is going to be Melissa. Melissa, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I have a business just a couple blocks from the center. And like Martin and Cindy, I also just want to make sure the transition is smooth.
Perfect. Thank you. Jennifer. Oh, Jennifer, you're still on mute. There we go.
Hi. My son lives at the We Built community down the street on Tolbert, and I'm a lifelong Clackamas County resident.
Excellent, thank you. Mike.
My name is Mike Sabula. Within Clackamas County, if you don't live in an incorporated area, you are represented by a community planning organization. This facility does not have an active community planning organization. My CPO is Sunnyside West Mount Scott CPO, and we are the closest CPO to this center. And I'm chair of that CPO, and I'm here to help represent the citizens.
Excellent, thank you. Sarah.
Hey everybody, I'm Sarah Schindelbeck. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm also the regional director of 4D recovery in Clackamas County. I grew up in Oregon City, and I'm just here to advocate for recovery and the need for a recovery center.
Excellent, thank you, Sarah. Miranda.
Hi, my name is Miranda Warren, and I'm on the administration team at We Built, which is down the street from the Recovery Center. It's an intentional housing community for adults with who experience disabilities such as autism or other sensory disabilities. And I'm here to just represent our community and keep their needs top of mind.
Excellent, thank you. And Brian, go ahead and finish us off, please. Thanks.
Hi. I'm a business owner just south of the Recovery Center, and we do drug testing. So this is a perfect committee for me to be on, because my business can be a resource for these people.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Brian. Much appreciated. Okay, and like I said, we do have one additional person who is on the committee, but I don't see her, so I'll reach out to her, Jenica Ashton. And so Yeah, and I believe, Kim, you might remember whether or not she is a resident or a business owner or both. Do you recall?
I believe a resident.
I think that's right.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So this is the committee. So excellent. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it now to Cindy, who's gonna go over things about the group and give an update on activities. And yeah, Cindy Becker, go right ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So as Dylan said, I'm the project coordinator for the Recovery Center. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about why we brought this group together and the activities to date. If you have questions, feel free to kind of raise your hand or shout out or do whatever. I also just wanted to mention, we intentionally kept this group smaller because we really wanted to have conversations. We didn't want to have a really large group that people really didn't have a chance to talk and we'd just be talking at them. So as we meet, probably less today just because we're giving background, but as we meet over the next few months, we really do want to engage you in two-way conversations and questions. And then obviously we do have opportunity for the public to comment, but we just wanted to keep it at a small number. So why are we doing this? We're doing this for two reasons. One is there's a lot of information and misinformation about people in recovery, about people suffering from substance use disorders, about what a recovery center is, about what a recovery center isn't. By the way, I talk fast. If I'm talking too fast, just raise your hand and say you're talking too fast. Anyway, so we really wanted to have an opportunity to hear from people who are physically, literally living around the recovery center and people who are in recovery to have that dialogue about, to debunk some of the myths and to talk about communication about the recovery center. I think it was kind of I would say more of a shock to people when we met in July. And we've been doing a lot more communication and we've met with city councils and we've done some outreach. And so we really, as I said, we're talking about as much about what the recovery center isn't as what it is. And so we'll be having the opportunity to have those conversations. The other reason to bring this group together is to develop what's called a good neighbor agreement. I don't know if you've seen these before, but the county's experienced that when they have developed services that are mostly residential in nature, so not like an outpatient clinic, but services that are residential. For example, we developed a secure residential treatment facility for people with severe mental illness. We've developed a Vets Village. We've developed some other residential sites, and it's really got to be. It's not, the county doesn't want to just plop something and say, okay, see you, bye, we're done. The services need to be part of the community. They need to have really relationships because they're your neighbors. And so a good neighbor agreement is just that. It's a written document that says what's going to happen if XYZ happens, what is the expectations of the recovery center, what are the expectations of the people who live around the recovery center, and how do we come together and reach agreement on that, and how do we communicate that? You may not feel comfortable saying, well, there's only a few of us here, and how do we represent everybody? So we'll talk about that as well, but the goal really is to have a document that people around the table can sign and really set the expectations moving forward. One of the really important pieces of that is, and I'll get into this in the next discussion, but when we have the provider named, the provider of the recovery center will be part of this group. Not only will they be part of this group, but we're gonna probably step back a little. We'll be here, but the provider needs to be the one to have that relationship with the neighbors. So any questions about those two perpi? I like kind of like octopi, any questions about Dylan?
Cindy, I just wanted to go ahead and point out that Jenica Ashton, who was we were emailing, she was having some laptop difficulties, but she's joined us now. So we've got the full group. So I just wanted to welcome her real quick.
Great, Jenica. Thank you for being here. Any questions? Okay. So one of the questions you might have and you didn't ask is, well, how long are we going to be doing this? And that really is going to be up to you and the provider. We would like to make sure we have the good neighbor agreement in place after a few months, but I suspect that the provider will want to have ongoing engagement with you and possibly a larger group. So that's something that you all can figure out. And just to be clear about how this works, the county is funding the construction of the center. So we're looking at clinical building, looking at transitional housing, all being on that 6-acre site. The services will be operated by a community provider. The county is not going to be the operator of the services. We felt it was really important to engage with a provider that had boots on the ground and deep experience in this arena. The county has some experience, but there are providers out there who have a lot more experience who do this. This is their job, if you will. We will stay engaged with the provider because we own the property, we own land, but the expectation is that the provider will run the residential and clinical services. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, my memory is that the long-term plan for this plot of land is to do a variety of different things, a variety of services there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the county's vision that the same provider will manage all those different things, or will this be a one-off for each of the different services offered there?
Great question. The county, there'll be a contract with the primary provider. And but as we know, not everybody is terrific in everything they do. And there are providers that may be able to provide one of the services better than that provider. So let's say, Mike, that we contract with you. Well, it may be that Jenica provides, supported employment services. And so she would subcontract with you, come on site and provide those services. But the primary contract will be with one provider, and they will decide how many of the different services their staff are going to provide and which services they want to bring in somebody else with expertise.
That's terrific. I think that is so helpful to have one organization that manages all the different elements as opposed to having multiple moving parts. Thank you, Cindy.
Yes, great. Brian, did you have a question?
Yes. Will the provider be a non-profit or a for-profit business?
They could be one or the other.
Okay.
We didn't have a restriction on that.
Because for a for-profit business, is their goal is to make money,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they'll do anything that they can to increase revenue. So that might be a concern we have to look at.
And I think that's a really valid point. And again, we did not restrict whether they're nonprofit or for-profit. Actually, we have two proposals. One is from a nonprofit and one is from a for-profit. Regardless of which they are, they still have to meet the requirements and expectations that we lay out and the funding. So there are not going to be different standards applied from one or the other.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Miranda, did you have a question?
Yeah, you'd mentioned that the county will be funding the construction of the center. And I think believe I also saw like a proposed budget online. So I'm just wondering, are those funds already secured? Are you raising those funds? And if so, are they a grant or a federal program? Like, where are those funds coming from?
So my answer would be yes, 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 and yes. So we have identified about $18 million to date, and they're coming from a variety of sources. There's a federal earmark, there's opioid dollars, there are funds from the supported housing services with the Metro tax dollars. So what we've done is braided all of these different funding sources to support this project. Now, our ultimate goal is to get 40 million. And so I'm also actively, I call it dialing for dollars. And so we have a variety of organizations in the private sector and who are also nonprofit funders who we are also meeting with. So that's why what we have done with this project is we have phased it. And so we want to make sure, we don't want to wait until we get all the money to do anything. And so we believe, and the way we did the notice of grant is that we said we know we have this money now, what can you do with it? And when we get to this amount of money, what can you do with it? So we want to make sure that we're phasing in the campus and we'll be able to raise funds at the same time. We also have a $10 million request into the state that has asked counties for such requests. So we feel really comfortable about that. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay, great. Okay. So I'm just going to slip into the next, and if I'm going too long, Dylan, please tell me because I could talk for hours. Anyway, so what have we done to date? So the first thing is securing the property. And so the county did approve purchase of it. I think it's 6.3 acres. And does everybody know what the property is? I assume you all do. I don't know, Gary and Sarah, do you? Okay. So it's,
I think I saw some heads shaking no. Actually,
Okay.
Cindy, if you want to share your image, that's probably helpful.
okay, can you let me share, Dylan? Okay, can everybody see this? This, the property is right here. And you have Tolbert Road, 90th, 91st, 92nd, 82nd. So you see coming off of the 205 to 82nd, you'd be going down Tolbert Road. And then right here, there's a church here and the property is right here. And so this is all the property. And it's 6.3 acres. There is currently a building on it, which is the Clackamas, Cascade Heights School. It's a former charter school. Well, it is a current charter school that was formerly leasing this property. So they are no longer leasing the property, and so we own all of it. There's a question about whether or not we're going to maintain the building. The building is really old, and so it will either be totally demolished or there is a newer section of the building that could be very usable. That will be up to the provider to decide. But we do not believe that at least the older part of the school will stay because it is old and it's got asbestos and lead. And those of you who have been inside of these types of buildings, once you tear them apart, it's like, oh my God. So I suspect that won't, oh my God. My dad is 77. He attended grade school there. I love that. It used to be an elementary school and then it was a charter school. Yeah, so it's great. The other thing that we're looking at is I'm going to be applying for some additional federal funds to build a residential friendly fence along the property. I think right now there's kind of a wire fence, whatever. So anyway, so we're going to be looking at that. But this is so that's the entire property here.
Cindy, I've got a better image if you'd like me to share it.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
I need you to stop sharing real quick.
Okay.
There we go. Let me know when it comes through.
Yeah, nice. So this over here, somebody asked about the We Build community, and the We Build community is right there in the upper part of your screen. Okay. Thank you. Questions about the property? We will be rezoning the property. Right now, it's kind of a hodgepodge of zones, and we want to have one zone for the entire property. I think Martin mentioned it, there will be a variety of services on this site. We're looking at detox, residential treatment, outpatient, supported employment, peer support, um, medical services, dental services, and also transitional housing. And the beauty of this, I think, is that we're looking at how do we wrap around services to people who have decided they want to begin their journey in recovery. And so you'll hear more about this as we go on, but one of the pieces of this was really how do we figure out what the best possible outcome can be. And you'll see there are places that call themselves recovery center. I'm not saying they're not, but they have a building here, a building there. They've got people have to travel different places to get the various services. And what's probably unique about this project is that it's a campus so that as people have various needs, they don't have to go anywhere. They're right there. The services are right there. Peer support, where people with lived experience are going to be there throughout the whole time. So it's really going to be, if you've heard about wraparound services for children. This is really wraparound services for adults who have determined they want to go through a recovery process. So it's really, it's a very structured setting. It's a structured environment. And we think it is really best practice because we're wrapping services around the individual rather than the individual having to seek out services all around the community. So we've been working on this. We had a big, about a year ago, we had a big summit. If people would like to, I can send you copies of the summit. We had experts from around the country and in Canada to talk to us about recovery and what makes the most sense. If you'd like, we would be happy to send you that report. And I don't know if it's on the Recovery Center site.
I think it's on Cindy, I ended up just sharing the summit page as well, just in the chat if people are interested in the Clackamas Addictions Recovery Summit. I believe we've got everything there. But also, I just want to point out, Jennifer had a question real quick in the chat. Will everyone be at the Recovery Center voluntarily?
Yes. Yes. And the one thing I want to make really clear, what the Recovery Center is not, it's not a deflection center. I know that many of you have read about Multnomah County's challenges with their deflection center. The deflection center in Multnomah County is a place where people come in for short-term assessment and treatment, and they may or may not stay there and they may leave. That's not what we're talking about here. The people that are going through a deflection process may end up being referred to the recovery center, but the recovery center is not a location for people to be dropped off in deflection. So I want to make that really clear because it is a big difference. People will be coming voluntarily. Now, it may be in the recovery process that they choose to go to the recovery center. They may come from the emergency room of a hospital. They may come from another service, a community service that they've determined they really need this level of care. They may come from the family. So we expect, or they may come from other triage and assessment sites that are in the community. And so they have various ways to come into the recovery center. But again, it's not just an outpatient where people are coming in and out all day. Outpatient services would be provided for the people in the recovery center. But we see people in the recovery center and the recovery campus being there, they could be there for up to a year. So it's not kind of an in and out. It's not a place, it's not a shelter. It is really a journey for someone. They may come in needing detox initially. They may not need detox initially. They may come in at some other point in that journey, but we want to have those services around them. And we also want to make sure that we're not artificially limiting, like you can only be in, in detox for X days, or you can only be in treatment for X days. We really want to be able to wrap around those tools that each individual needs. The other thing that's different about this center is that when someone is ready to re-enter the community, they're going to have that support with them. In the past, it's kind of been, okay, you've had your 6 sessions, good luck. And we're really looking at a different model where peers are going to be involved with the individuals. And when they go back to the community, they'll have a place to live, they'll have a job, or they'll have education, they'll have some kind of a purpose. And so those are all the things we've been working on. We've done some presentations to Happy Valley City Council, to Milwaukee City Council, lots and lots of support. We were really happy to hear that. We also did a presentation, I think, Mike, to your CPO, correct? Yeah. So yes, Dylan, am I talking too long?
Nope, you're great. I just want to point out, I don't think you saw, there was another question in the chat from Jenica. Has it been named? Is it referred to as a campus?
Great question. I wanted to name it, but I was told I can't do that. So that when we have the provider, they will work, and I'm sure they'll work with the community to name it. And so when we refer to the recovery center, you'll hear it either we mean the campus, but sometimes we don't always use the term campus, but it technically would be the recovery center campus, or it just could be short, the recovery center, but we mean that 6-acre site. The other piece of that site, we know that, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at phases. So we suspect this is a first phase. It's not going to use all the 6 acres. We're also going to want to look at how do we configure some of the properties so we can, there's interaction with the community. And also right now we're starting with adults, but we may over time increase that capacity and add some buildings for youth. Again, don't know that yet. Our goal initially is let's try to do it as right as possible. And let's just focus on a population rather than trying to be all things to all people at the beginning. So we've been working on all these activities, and so it's a combination of getting the property, getting a provider, getting money. So we have put out at what's called a NOFO, which is a Notice of Funding Opportunity. It's like an RFP that you see in government, request for proposal, but because it's a grant, it's called a NOFO. Don't ask me, there's just, all these initials. Anyway, we've had 2 providers respond. One of them is Fora Health, F-O-R-A Health, and the other is Cedar Hills Hospital. I'm not allowed to tell you any more than that until we get through with the evaluation process. That evaluation is happening tomorrow. We have a great team. We have about 8 or 9 people scoring the responses, and we'll be getting together tomorrow. And as soon as I'm able to publicly announce the apparent, I guess, victor winner, I will do that. But we have had those two good responses from those 2 organizations. As I said, one's a nonprofit, one's a for-profit. So any questions of me thus far? Does it make sense so far? Yes, Mike.
In the perfect world, what would your timing be?
So
for any element of this.
So our hope, in a perfect world, we will get a contract done and approved by the board in January. I think we're looking at the earliest is 2026 and 2027 for seeing actual buildings on the site. Because as you know, or any of you who have done any of this with the house, you've got a long design period, you got the permits, you got da-da-da-da-da-da, before you even, stick a shovel in the ground. Obviously, if the provider decides to raise the building, that would happen during that time as well. But we're looking at 26, 27, I believe.
I have a question.
Yes.
What will the security in the meantime be around the school so homeless don't move in?
So you have like great minds think alike, Martin, because I was just going to talk about security and safety. Actually, the property has been vacant since July, and it currently is owned by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. And they, we've asked about that, and they said it hasn't really been an issue. But we certainly will have, people can report that if there is an issue. But the other thing, the property is transferring over to the Health, Housing, and Human Services Department. They will take ownership of it. We also will have county facility staff who will be maintaining the building. So they will be in and out as well.
Good.
The other piece of that, though, that gets in terms of safety, we have asked the providers in this NOFO process, we have asked them to specifically speak to safety of the staff, the residents, and the neighbors as part of their response. So they're all very attuned to that and know that that's a priority.
Cindy, you got about 2 or 3 minutes left before I'd like to move on, just to be sure we
Okay,
cover
any
everything we
other
said we were gonna do.
questions? By the way, there are no dumb questions because I probably asked them, so feel free to ask them or if you want to just put them in the chat. The other thing after this meeting, if you think of something, please feel free to email me. It's cbecker@clackamas.us. No other questions, comments? You're all really excited, I can tell. Okay, let's go on to the next part.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cindy. And we'll have, again, we'll have a time at the end if any other questions occur to anyone, because I don't think we have a member of the public with us, because I think it is Jenica's other computer that she was having issues with since unless there's 2 people out there named Jenica in the immediate area. If someone, oh, yep, and they're gone. Okay, great. So we don't have to worry about that right now. Wonderful. Okay, next up, we wanted to give Gary and Sarah each an opportunity to, having gone through recovery themselves, give their own stories, just to give some added perspective of where they're coming from, but also how a center may be, with their insight, may be of benefit to people, going through recovery, suffering with addiction or substance use disorder. I'd ask both Gary and Sarah to each take no more than 5 minutes each. And I don't really, I'm good with whoever would like to start, between Gary or Sarah.
I can go first.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. Go right ahead.
All right, so I'm Sarah Schindelbeck. Like I said, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've been clean since December 22nd of 2017. So I'm coming up on 7 years of recovery. That's abstinence-based. I got into drugs in my teen years. I ended up getting my wisdom teeth removed, and they prescribed me Oxycontin. I went through some traumatic things in my childhood, and when I took that medication, I didn't feel the anxiety or the pain of that trauma anymore, which led me down a deep, dark, long road of heroin and meth addiction. And, I tried to get clean so many different times, but the lack of services, the wait times, the lack of peer support when I went into places kept me from being in recovery, kind of took me back out into my active addiction. And so coming from Clackamas County and seeing that there's not a lot of, residential or detox services, it was really hard to stay clean. I actually had to go out of state to get my recovery. I was there for over a year. It was sort of a campus where I stayed and got all of the support I needed. I was able to live there afterwards as well. So it's kind of a similar model to what we're wanting to do in Clackamas County. Like I had mentioned, I work for 4D Recovery. So we're in Clackamas County. We serve people that have substance use disorder. And the thing that we see most is, there's a very long wait time for detox in residential. Sometimes we can get people in the detox quickly, but then there is a very long wait time to get into residential. So they get out of detox, they have nowhere to go, and then they end up going back out into the streets and back into active addiction. So the benefit of the recovery center is that everything is going to be in one spot. So somebody shows up, they get into detox, then they get into residential, they get all of the support in one area, and they're able to be successful. And, I believe in the power of recovery. I believe in, I also believe in the timeline and of the need to want recovery. So like sometimes somebody will say, hey, I want to get clean now, but when they can't access the services, they end up they give up hope and they go back out. And so having something that's accessible and quick is going to be essential for a community. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say in regards to the recovery center. And I feel like if we would have had this building back in the day, I would have achieved recovery a lot quicker than I did.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Gary, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Again, my name's Gary Cobb, and I'm really honored to participate in this conversation because, I think Sarah laid it out, and the need in Clackamas County is really, all over, but more specifically in Clackamas County. I currently am contracted with a Native American organization, Red Lodge Transition Services. So I've been kind of navigating in the county, working with them for the last year and a half, and seeing the importance of what this recovery campus will bring. That said, I just had the honor to celebrate 24 years of continuous recovery on November 16th. And what that means is that I haven't used any illegal drugs or alcohol or committed any crimes in that past 24 years. And I add that because it's really important for me to honor my recovery that has taken me 180 degrees away from a negative lifestyle into one that is positive. And that's precisely what folks do when they engage in recovery. And I like the questions about, will folks kind of self-engage in this? And what I've learned over the years that when a person does that self-engagement into seeking recovery, that there is a lot of success there. I'm not saying that these other methods don't work for people, but this particular model, this wellness campus, how Cindy has described it, is precisely what I utilized 24 years ago, except the detox wasn't part of that. I went to the detox, got into this area that had the supportive housing, the treatment component, and then the employment component added to it. And it's just a model that is proven effective for folks, and how it stays effective is also back to that comment that don't try to be all things to all people. All people will eventually get served, but we got to take a group of people, get them stabilized, get them back out into the community so they can be that positive influence. And utilizing the folks with lived experience into this model is really key to the success here. And, I've seen it happen. I've worked at national levels with the Faces and Voices of Recovery, and seen this model work in other cities across the country. And so I really appreciate this group coming together, because that's another key component, having everybody in the neighborhood have a conversation, air concerns, everything good, bad, and indifferent. And that support is really important too. So thank you for letting me be here.
All right. Thanks very much for that, Gary, and thanks for sharing your perspective and story. That's great.
If I could just mention and thank, we intentionally invited Gary and Sarah, even though they don't live in the immediate area. We thought it was really important for you to hear from people in recovery, as opposed to people talking about recovery from a third person. And so they're going to be continue to engage in this group. And as you have questions or comments, we really thought it was critical that they are part of this. Mike.
Cindy, I think that's spot on. We as citizens can think, yeah, this is a great idea. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? But to have people who are experts, that have experienced this, that know what's been successful for them and for others that they've experienced, that they have worked with, is so helpful. My gosh, thank you. Good on you guys. Well, good on you for being sober, going to work, the hard work that you went through and continue to go through. Good on you for volunteering to be here. Good on you for sharing your story. Thank you.
Gary, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think that I forgot to add that I met Cindy probably in 2003 or 4 when she was working at the state's addiction and mental health uh, department, and I was doing some advocacy work and working with her. Um, it became really clear that Cindy understood what recovery is, what people need to get into recovery. And so I say that to say that this Cindy is the perfect person to help guide this recovery center and whoever they contract with to get this campus going. So I really appreciate this, Cindy.
Very good. Thank you very much for that again, Gary. Okay, well, let me see. We're good on time. Before I open it up for any last questions about anything with the Recovery Center campus or this group or next steps or anything. Cindy, did I probably cut you off a little bit too early. Was there anything else you wanted to get to before we move on, Cindy, or are you okay?
Well, I always have something else to say. One of the things that I would like you to think about as we meet is how do we communicate what we're talking about here? What's the best way to have these communications with kind of larger circles of people who are not here, but may have some of the same questions or concerns? So I don't expect an answer today, but if you could think about that for our next meeting, how do we communicate? How do we message to businesses, other businesses and residents around this site? So thanks.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so again, we don't have any members of the public in the audience, so we don't have to worry about that. So we're just a little bit of extra time, but we don't, of course, we can end early. But I wanted to give a last opportunity if any member of the group had any questions at all right now about anything regarding the Recovery Center campus or this group or anything at all. I see that Jenica did raise her hand, so Jenica, go right ahead.
You're
But you're muted, Jenica. Sorry, you have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Hi, does it show me on the camera? Okay. I am a registered nurse. So when you're speaking about the detox process, how does that look as far as like any kind of like medical oversight like during those processes?
So great question, and our provider will be able to answer that in more detail, but this will be medically supervised detox.
I should say, of course, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to clarify. So there's 2 groups right now that are up for being the oversight. Is that right?
Being the actual provider.
Right.
Yes, the NOFO that we sent out was for construction and operation. Yes, and there are 2 groups who submitted proposals.
Just to underscore this, I think Cindy mentioned it earlier, but to your question, good question, Jenica. The provider will eventually be a very important part of this group. Once the provider is selected, the provider will come on. It's going to be required and that sort of thing. They will work directly with all of you once we have that selection done. But as Cindy said, the earliest or optimal time that's going to get done is January. We'll see if that happens or not, but we can address that question with the provider at that point.
Martin, did you have a question?
Yes. Is it going to be drug and alcohol combined, or will it mainly just focus on drugs?
It would be substance use disorder, which includes drug and alcohol. Also understanding that some of the individuals who come to the center may also have mental health issues as well. But if the person, as I said, if the person's primary issue is mental health and secondary substance use, this is not the place. We have other resources that we're investing in the community. There's a stabilization center that's being developed for people who have severe mental health crises. This is the one place that is really primary for people with substance use disorder, including both drugs and alcohol. Great question.
Thank you.
Brian, do you have a question?
What are the requirements for the provider?
The requirements for the provider, legally, they must be obviously in good standing. They must be able also to receive Medicaid payments. Not all providers are, these providers do, but and so they will also have to meet various licenses depending on the array of services. So they'll have to be in good standing there as well.
So, with regards to the services offered, the what do you have a specific requirements on the services provided?
So I'm not allowed to say anything at this point about this except for the names of the providers. Or otherwise I'd get in trouble. I would love to tell you more, but I can't. So we will, you'll have all that information once we select the provider, and all of that will become public information. But I'm sorry, I can't tell you anymore.
Okay, thank you.
I can step in on that just once because I'm not privy to what Cindy's privy to, but I will say on the Recovery Center webpage, it does spell out the services that are envisioned at the campus right now. No, that's not directly related to what Cindy's talking about, just for legal trouble. We've put that out before. It's in our press releases, so you can get an idea of the services that are envisioned at the center on the webpage right now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Any other last minute questions?
And if
Okay.
are there other topics that you would like to make sure that we put on the agenda for next time? So we want you to drive this agenda as much as we. Mike.
Having conversations are good. I have no complaints about that. What I'd like to understand is what are we, and I understand ultimately we're moving towards a good neighbor agreement. Can someone maybe in our next meeting identify what are the steps that we're going to take to get from today's conversation to, as someone said, a document that we're all going to sign? If someone could explain that process to me or outline what the steps are in our next meeting, that'd be great.
We can do that, and I think it's very organic, to be quite honest. But I do have some copies of Good Neighbor Agreements that I could send you, so you have a sense of what these puppies look like. And then I think it's really going to be up to you and the provider, and we can help facilitate that to actually whether there's a subcommittee of you guys or however you want to do it. But I think that will be up to you. But I can send you examples. Anything else you want on the agenda for next time?
Can I request a little bit of feedback from the group? If you guys hear from neighbors or if you have particular concerns about just physically how the site operates, like, maybe pedestrian crosswalks that are already a problem, traffic concerns sensitive areas that, you might not want something strange, a giant building on that particular corner because there's a beautiful tree, whatever the case may be, that would be super helpful feedback for me.
That's really critical because as we're going through the zoning, I know that folks from WeBuild have already talked about looking at the entry to the property. So when people are dropped off, that it's not right in front of the WeBuild area because of some of the challenges around lights and different groups. So if there are things like that you want to bring up, and again, talk to your neighbors, talk among yourselves, we definitely want to have those conversations as well. Miranda.
I just want to maybe get more clarification. I think this already might have come up just about the good neighbor agreement and what to expect with that. This is probably something better to talk about with the provider, but is this a document that will be enforceable in some way if both parties aren't upholding their end, or is this something that's just a social contract? What actions might be taken if the provider does not adhere to the expectations or commitment to neighborhood safety? There's those kinds of things.
So the ones that I've seen, they're not legal contracts. They are social contracts, they're good faith contracts, agreements. And but if there are issues or concerns, there always has, the county to address, or whoever is doing the various contracts. So the Good Neighbor Agreement is just that. It's an agreement. It's not legally enforceable. I know that the ones that I've seen and the experiences, they've addressed a lot of issues and concerns, and they've really set a tone, which has enabled the neighbors and the residential place to move forward.
Okay, very good. Any other last questions? I think that was the last one, unless somebody has it. Going once, going twice. Okay, got it. Okay, wonderful. I want to thank everybody for being here. We had a full boat. Everybody who was selected showed up. That's great. Of course, we did choose this time based on your responses. Tuesdays during the lunch hour seem to work. For next steps, we've written down, Kimberly's been taking notes. I've been taking notes as far as what everybody wants to hear next time. And as we said, next time we will have probably, hopefully, an update on the selection of the provider, or at least where we are in the process, of course. Probably will not meet the first week of January just with the holidays, but sometime in January, I will reach out specifically to everyone to see if there is a good time that works on a future Tuesday, I guess a date that works for the future Tuesday at the lunch hour. But unless
if anybody, if anybody has any ideas, comments, questions between now and then, feel free to just send them.
Yes, that's great. You send it to me or send it to Cindy. I put her address in the chat too. And you send it either, so we definitely share it. So there we go. Oh, Mike, very good.
I appreciate this meeting. I despise meetings to have meetings. So if we can be real clear on what we're trying to accomplish in each meeting, so we make the full, today was perfect. Wonderful to meet people here, get backgrounds and get understandings. But let's make sure that if we're having a meeting, that we have a specific purpose for that meeting, other than just saying hello and checking on how everybody's holidays were. And Kaylin, a wonderful tree.
Well, and as government people, we just love to meet. We had pre-meetings, post-meetings, during meetings. So yeah, well, we agree with you, Mike.
Very good. We will make sure to have a point next time we meet. Okay, excellent. All right. Thanks, everybody. 12:59. Want to get you out in time. Have a good one.